Okay, today we're talking about ghost guns. So, what is a ghost gun? Well, to start off, there's no such thing. It's a misnomer. It is a term that is created by the media in order to scare people who don't know better. But what it actually is just a gun that doesn't have a serial number. It is a homemade firearm. And guess what? Homemade firearms are completely legal. This right here is case in point. This is a homemade firearm. This is mostly 3D printed. This particular gun is kind of a meme gun. If you know, you know. This is a 3011. I already did a video on the suppressor. This is a 3D printed suppressor. This is an NFA item. So this does have a tax stamp. This is serialized. This does not fall into the same category as this. Okay, so if you want to hear more about this, go look at my other video about this particular suppressor, because this is the same suppressor that Luigi Mangione used. So this is the media's worst nightmare, right? That's a mostly 3D printed firearm. But before we go into what this is, let's go directly to the ATF's website. So straight out of the horse's mouth, what does the ATF think about homemade firearms? And obviously, this will also be affected by where you live. I live in Texas. Does an individual need a firearm license? Does an individual need a license to make a firearm for personal use? No, a license is not required to make a firearm solely for personal use. However, a license is required to manufacture firearms for sale or distribution. The law prohibits a person from assembling a non-sporting semi-automatic rifle or shotgun from 10 or more imported parts, as well as firearms that cannot be detected by metal detectors or X-ray machines. In addition, the making of an NFA firearm requires a tax payment and advanced approval by the ATF. So, homemade stuff is completely legal. Obviously, you know, if you live in a stupid state like California or New York, that's a different story, right? The only reason why the gun that Luigi Mangione was using was illegal is because of where he was. If he had made that, if he was a Texas resident, then it wouldn't even be illegal for him to have made what he made. Obviously, it was illegal what he did with it. But I'm saying all of this that you're seeing here, as scary as the media tries to make it seem, all of this is completely legal, okay? Now, the 3011, what is it? Well, most of what you're looking at here is 3D printed, except for, obviously, the slide is metal, which comes off of a 1911, okay? And this is a fire control group from an AR-15, and this is a grip from an AR-15. So, literally, if you have a 1911 and a bunch of AR parts laying around, you probably already have most of what you need to make this, especially if you already have a 3D printer. But just, you know, for descriptive purposes, this is a pistol, okay? This is not a short-barreled rifle. Obviously, the suppressor makes this barrel look a lot longer, but the barrel ends right here. This is a pistol. There is a pistol brace as well, which is also fully 3D printed. But as I read in the ATF thing, you know, this is completely legal. This is not going to make it through a metal detector or an X-ray machine. You are for sure going to get caught with this. There is tons of metal here, okay? But it is just mostly 3D printed. And honestly, this is one of the coolest guns that I own. Like, not exaggerating, like, whenever I go to the gun range with this thing, 100% of the time people are asking me questions about, you know, where did it come from? How do I make my own? Blah, blah, blah. It's just a fun gun, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, this is still a 1911. This is still chambered in 45. This is still a fully usable, reliable gun. The slide, the frame is printed, but the slide, there's these two metal inserts that the slide rides on. So you're not riding metal on plastic, which would wear out very quickly. But this is just a sweet gun, especially running the suppressor on this thing. And if you haven't seen the video that I made about this particular suppressor, because this is the same one that Luigi Mangione used, like, go watch that video about this suppressor. This is 3D printed, this is homemade, but it's also registered with the ATF. There's a tax stamp, there's a serial number, the whole nine. This is fully legal, and this is fully legal. And if you live in a state that doesn't suck, you can make something like this. This is not a crazy, dangerous, scary thing. It is literally just, a cool version of a very popular platform. Like, everybody has a 1911. This is just something cool that you can do with your 1911. You know, Personally, if you wanted to build one of these, you know, if like when I was looking for the parts for this, I was thinking about getting a complete slide, like with all the pieces on it already, so that way I could keep my 1911 put together without having to swap this slide back and forth whenever I want to shoot it as in one configuration or the other. But when I was looking around, what I realized is that a complete slide for a 1911 for some reason is as expensive as a full 1911. To be fair, the 1911 that I have is a Rock Island Armory, so it's pretty cheap, which is probably why everything I found was expensive as my whole gun. But that's just, I'm not bougie when it comes to firearms. You know what I mean? Like this Rock Island Armory 1911 might be cheap, but I've had it for 13 years or something. I've never had any reliability issues with it. It's always been a really good gun, and it just works. My AR-15 isn't some Daniel Defense or some SIG or something like that. It's just a random brand that was at what's that gun shop? Range USA. It's like the Walmart of gun shops. And the Jackal that I did the video on. I told you guys about the Jackal. Like, I could have gone with the SIG, but instead I saved myself $1,500 and went with the Jackal. Like, I'm not one of those guys who has to have the most expensive version of everything. I appreciate saving money, and something like this is actually a good way to save money. If you've been looking at, like, the most comparable thing to this would be, like, I know CMMG makes a little carbine style pistol like this that's chambered in 45, but I was actually looking at that to purchase. Like, I wanted the CMMG 45, the bufferless that they have, because I like being able to fold the pistol brace. And the reason I didn't end up going with it is because a brand new CMMG bufferless chambered in 45 it starts at like $1,100 or $1,400. It's crazy expensive. You know what I mean? Whereas you could go buy a Rock Island Armory 1911 for $500, and then if you don't already have these random AR parts laying around, that's another, I don't know, $50 in parts right there, and then you just 3D print the rest. So it's significantly cheaper to make this than it was for me to go buy the little carbine pistol from CMMG. But yeah, anyways, I just wanted to talk about this gun because this is the media's worst nightmare right here. They hate that something like this exists, but we live in the future. You know what I'm saying? Polymer guns have existed for a long time, and now 3D printing has gotten to a point where people can have stuff like this and make it themselves at home very easily. Like, there's not a ton of money put into something like this. It's not hard to find the files. It's not hard to, find a reliable 3D printer that you can get all the settings dialed in. Like, this kind of stuff becomes more and more accessible every day, as it should. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have to be a licensed freaking FFL, or Armor or SOT or whatever, just to be able to make something like this. Like, this is America. We've, like, the Second Amendment is supposed to specifically protect our rights to be able to have this kind of stuff and for us to be able to make it ourselves. There's nowhere in the Second Amendment that says, oh, you got to go buy those from the store. But yeah, this thing, super sweet, super fun. Everybody always asks about it when I go to the range. I would highly recommend, if you already have these parts in a 3D printer, look into making one of these, because it's pretty, like I said, the parts are easy to come by. It's completely legal. This is not going to make it through a freaking airport. This is not going to make it through an x-ray machine. This is not going to make it through a metal detector. This has tons of metal, especially, once you account for the freaking jumbo magazine that you have to have for a 1911. 45 is not exactly a small caliber round. So, yeah. These things are sweet. Especially, and like I said, go back to that last video. Find out how you make one of these yourself, okay? Because literally, I mean, you're looking at, even if you don't own the 1911 already, I mean, you're looking at maybe $700 right here, to have a 45 caliber carbine, that you make yourself, which I like making stuff myself. I feel like it's part of the fun of doing this kind of stuff. You know, this kind of stuff is why people like me enjoy the hobby of, you know, owning guns and going shooting and going to the range and talking to people about this stuff. People always want to know about this. This is a guaranteed conversation starter at the range. Like, the RSO sees you pull something out of your bag that looks like carbon fiber or whatever, fiberglass, like, they're gonna ask about this. Actually, depending on what range you go to, some ranges will actually require you to bring your tax stamp with you in order to have NFA items, like, which is really stupid. I don't go to ranges like that, but there's a couple ranges in my area where I went on their website and they specifically state that if you bring an NFA item, you have to bring your tax stamp with you, which that's just stupid. Don't ever do that. But anyways, 3011, you can find the files online. Very easy to make, super fun. Check out my last video if you want to know about the suppressor. If you like the video, do me a favor, like the video, or hit the like button, I should say. And also, if you like the video, maybe you can consider subscribing. We're at 48 subscribers last time I checked, which the number's going up. I think we've gotten, like, I think the analytics say we've gained like 22 subscribers in the last 30 days. So I don't know if that's good or not, but I'll take it. So that'll do. I'll see you guys in the next one.